All right, great to be here with you today. I've got Jeff Landau, which is an amazing real estate professional. He's with Team 805 at Keller Williams here in Westlake Village, and he is just a great individual and a great real estate professional. So it's great to be here. Great to have you here, Jeff.
I appreciate the invite. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, you bet. And Jeff has done some amazing things. His specialty is he really does well making sure that the property is in great shape before it's listed for sale. And we're going to talk a little bit about that more today. And so one of the things I want to ask you about, Jeff, is this is a really tough market for a lot of agents. And what are you doing right now to help you do well? What's some of the secret sauce that, if you wouldn't mind sharing, that really has been great for you?
Well, we're gonna get esoteric, John, because probably the number one thing is mindset. And I've had a coach since I got into real estate in 2002. And for about 17 years, I picked and chose what I wanted to listen to about him and chose the easy things and didn't do the things that sounded a little bit more difficult.
Okay, so wait a minute. Now, so you've had a coach for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So you're the type of individual that wants to be coached.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Why is that?
Why a coach? It just seems like...
Because a lot of people don't like to be accountable. But a coach holds you to accountability.
I appreciate the guidance on that, because that happens to be one of the reasons. And to work a little bit backwards, I took a little bit of time away from him, and I went within the Keller Williams coaching system. And the thing I didn't like about it was the lack of accountability. So one of the many valuable things of the coach that I have is his accountability. While he can't fire me, there's also a standard set, and there's something that I'm being coached to do. Now, I don't have to do it, and I don't have to pay him, and I don't have to show up. But that also gives me guidance, because in real estate, we're all independent contractors. And, if I didn't have a coach, if I didn't have a call at 7 o'clock and 7:30 and 8 and 5:30, then it would be like, how would I structure my time? Now, obviously, people know how to structure their time. Not everybody needs a coach. I feel if the greatest sports players on the planet have a coach and listen to their coach, who am I not to have one?
Yeah. And what were you saying about you've had the coach for a while, and you chose sometimes not to listen to him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I mean, there was a turning point for me in the summer of 2017. So prior to that, I would be on group coaching calls. Sometimes it would be a small group call, sometimes a group call with 100 people, and he would still be coaching us. But obviously, it wasn't one-on-one. But basically, it was. If he spoke to somebody, and we're all real estate agents, it didn't matter what part of the country we were in or how much business we were doing, he was still coaching us on the fundamentals. So there are still things that you can take away, even though it wasn't one-on-one. And he wasn't coaching based on what felt good to do. He coached on what he saw, what it took to be successful running a business. And some of those things, I said, I don't really feel like doing that. And my business wasn't as good when I wasn't listening to him.
Oh, interesting.
To admit that, yes.
Very cool. All right, that's wonderful. So how has that helped you be successful now? How has that helped you to in this market to be able to do it as well as you are?
Well, and that's what got us down this path in the first place. And he coaches us on 6 fundamentals: mindset, time blocking, CRM, process management, emotional intelligence, and tracking our numbers. And when I started one-on-one coaching with him about a year and a half ago, and the first thing that I did on our first phone call is pledge to him that I was going to be coachable. It's one thing to have a coach, and it's another thing to just do whatever they say. And he was a professional football player. and I'm going to get to your answer, but there's a little bit longer answer.
Yeah.
Because of something that really stands out. He was coached by Don Shula.
Oh, wow.
One of the greatest football coaches ever, if not the greatest football coach. And at the time, my coach Steve was kind of playing it safe. He didn't want to get cut. And he was walking out of the tunnel for a practice, and Shula was in front of him and turned around and looked him in the eye and said, "Son, you're not doing what we put you on this field to do," and turned and walked away. And that was a turning point for Steve.
Yeah.
Exactly. He realized that he was playing it safe, and if he keeps on doing that, that's Shula's way of saying, you'll be off the team in a couple weeks. So in real estate, no one's going to fire me, but if I don't get hired by people to help them, I'll be getting fired. And, I took that story from Steve, which I've heard many times, and I said to him, I pledge to you, now that I'm stepping up my commitment to you as a coach, I am going to be coachable. I'm going to do whatever you say. And one thing that did for me with his 6 building blocks, it really helped me get centered and get focused. Because as real estate agents, and I'm sure you get the same, there are all these companies that say, hey, here's the greatest way. You can get leads, you can do this. And there's all these different ways that you can go down different paths and not focus on what you have to do on a daily basis. And that I was a poster child for, I'll try that, and I'll try all these different things, except what I was doing, what I was coached to do. And when I started one-on-one with him, I was just laser focused. He said, these are the 6 things, and if the 7th thing popped up, I didn't do it. I didn't look at it. I didn't open the email. I didn't answer the phone call. And the first thing is mindset, and really getting centered on what my job is, on what my job isn't, and what I have control over and what I don't have control over. I have no control over what's happening in the marketplace right now.
Yeah, right.
And while a lot of people in real estate and a lot of lenders got probably hurt even more than real estate agents with how, the market shifted, I don't think about the market because that has, I think about the market when I'm counseling a client because I need to be able to explain to them what's happening, how to act best as a buyer, how to act best as a seller.
Right.
But short of that, there's no like, oh my God, this happened in the market and that. It just is.
Right.
The market is, and I have to counsel my clients how to best navigate that. So it everything starts with me with mindset.
Excellent. And what are a few more tips that you have? Mindset to me would be everything, really, because it's what's going on. It's your self-talk. It has everything to do with how you get up in the morning and what you say when you're in front of the mirror, right? And what you say when you're going to talk to a client. It really has a lot to do with your presence.
And that's why mindset is his number one, that it all starts with mindset.
Which mindset.
Coach Steve agrees with you.
So when you talk about mindset, give me an example.
So one of the things is being clear on what my job is with the client. And my job is not to make decisions for them. My job is to lay out options, give them a lay of the landscape. If they're considering certain options, giving them my best understanding of what the consequences are, what the pros and cons are, and then shutting up and letting my client figure out what they want to do.
Right.
And then once they figure out, then it's my job to implement that to the best of my ability for them.
Okay. That's a great example. And do you have a couple more thoughts on what's helped you? I mean, that's really big. What would you say would be in addition to some of those things?
One of the biggest aha moments I've had is the business that I'm in. And it's been trite to say that, real estate agents are in the lead generation business. And I was coached on that for a while and heard people say that. And what I really feel now is I'm in the relationship building business. And my goal isn't to have 10,000 clients. My goal is to get, instead of going wide and just narrow and think about it as a transaction and then moving on.
Yeah.
That's not who I am. And I probably tried doing that in the past and it didn't work because and one of the reasons it's not who I am. And going deep with people that I know and understanding them better and treating them as people, not as people that might do business.
Right.
that's really helped change my mindset. And when I'm calling people to keep in touch, it's not, oh, by the way, who do you know that's looking to buy or sell a home that could use my help? That just feels so weird to say, even though there are some coaches that coach people to say that.
Yeah,
I'm sure people do that, and it helps them.
Yeah.
It's just not me.
Right.
It doesn't feel right. And people transact every 5, 7, 10, 12 years. So if I only called you and I thought that you may have some business for me, or that you may be looking to buy or sell a home,
Right.
what am I going to pull like a number out of my hat? Go, oh, this is the day that John needs to hear from me.
Yeah.
And then you'd say, well, you're only calling me because you want business.
Mm-hmm.
So I call people on a regular basis, whether it's having a lunch or coffee or just a phone call. And the only thing, what's going on?
Yeah.
How's your family? And
right.
and just keep it personal. And that also resonates with me, like who I am. So it's a very natural conversation. There's nothing awkward about it, because there's nothing underlying picking up the phone and calling somebody to say hi.
Yeah. That's excellent. That's really, really good. I mean, because that really gets to the very root, to the very essence of why we're in the business to begin with.
Service business.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so let me ask you a question. How did you get into real estate? And the reason why I asked that question is that there's not a lot of people that come out of college and say, I'm going to be a real estate agent, right? Usually they transitioned into it for some reason. And I'm always really intrigued as to what that reason is. So a little bit of your background, if you would, and a little bit about Jeff.
I bet you get some crazy answers with how real estate agents got into real estate.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy.
I don't know that I've ever met one that got into real estate right out of school because that's what they wanted to do, and I am no different. I have a bachelor's in finance.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I wanted to do with that, although I just loved finance. I loved the stock market. My first 4 or 5 years out of school were in banking.
Okay.
I started off at World Savings for a couple of months. I graduated in August of 87, and started working in their mortgage department.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. I was a trainee with loan processing and appraisal, and the market crashed the next month.
Okay.
Our hours got cut, and 4 months later, I said, see you later.
Wow. And what is it that you like about finance?
I love math, and that just combines math and money. I don't know. I almost minored in math. I could have taken one more class and got a minor in it, but
interesting. Okay.
So I've always been a numbers guy in spreadsheets. So after that, my first job, that was in San Diego. Graduated from San Diego State. When I came up to LA and trying to find a job, I got a job with Industrial Bank of Japan as a real estate analyst, even though I didn't have any experience as a real estate analyst. I didn't have any experience with spreadsheets. I borrowed a diskette. Lotus 123 was on a 3.5 floppy disk.
Yeah.
And I bought the Using 123 book, which is about that thick.
Right.
And I just went through it, and I learned Lotus. And the job interview that I had, they said, do you know Lotus 123? I said, of course. Kind of analyst would I be if I don't know Lotus 123? And I did some stuff, and I got hired. And I was a commercial real estate analyst for about 4 years at 2 different banks.
Uh-huh.
Analyzed hotels and office buildings and mergers, and I really loved crunching the numbers. And a couple years in, I realized, as much as I loved it, I didn't want to be doing that for the next X many years. I wanted to be self-employed, not even knowing what that meant or what that looked like.
Yeah.
I got my real estate license at that time. I've been licensed since 92.
Okay.
I did a little bit of work for a friend of mine, got his JD, MBA, worked at a law firm for 6 months before he quit because he didn't like the law, and he started a real estate brokerage. And I worked with him for a couple of years. So I got a little bit of a taste of real estate in the early 90s.
Interesting. Okay, so one thing I want to ask you is you're talking about the service business, about building relationships. Where does that come from? Because a lot of real estate agents are very more transactional. You're really the opposite on that. So I want to know where this beginning of wanting to have a relationship with your clients comes from. Where does that come from?
probably somebody from high school would question that too, because I don't know about socially awkward, but I didn't have an enormous amount of friends. I think it's really just coming from who I am, and like genuinely liking people, and to ask somebody about themselves isn't forcing something from me. Like, oh my God, do I have to listen to this? It's a genuine interest, and part of my business was also prospecting. I mean, there were times I would spend the entire day, 8 hours knocking on doors. But at the same time, it wasn't knocking on a door to get a deal. I wasn't knocking on your door hoping to say, hey, you know what? Good timing. We happen to be looking to sell our home.
Yeah.
With thousands and thousands of doors that I've knocked on, that happened twice. So anybody that's looking to knock on a door to get business, that's not the right thing to be doing. But that was also just to meet people. And some people had no interest because I was invading their space, which is totally cool. But there were some people that appreciated that I wasn't trying to throw dirt on ther carpet and sell them a carpet cleaner.
Yeah.
And over time, because I kept on going back twice a year, not all the time.
Right.
That was also building a relationship, and it was over time. I mean, that took years.
Right.
And that just resonated with me and who I am, and it was just a lot more natural way for me to conduct myself and to conduct my business.
Okay, now this is really interesting, because what you're talking about here, you're talking about, when you talk about building relationships, you're talking about an individual who's patient, because there was a survey done about children who. It was a Stanford survey done where children had the opportunity to eat a marshmallow, or they could wait 15 minutes and have 2 marshmallows. You might be familiar with that. Mm-hmm. And the children who were patient, did much better in life. This study turned into something that was huge. And so when you talk about building relationships, it takes time. That's compared to people who want just transactions, and they just want the deal. And so I'm really intrigued as to the idea that you're service-oriented, you're patient, which shows a lot about character. Do you think that comes from something in your childhood growing up, or in your environment when you were in your home?
As you're asking the question, what I was thinking about was one of the things that I didn't like about banking was, there were like really big numbers. We were looking at $10, $30, $50 million deals that I was crunching the numbers on. And when it closed, this was sitting in a boardroom and the attorneys and 15, 20 people, and it was fun. I liked doing it. And then when it closed, what did I do? It was accounting. It was, we're moving these numbers to these numbers and they're getting to do something. And I didn't feel like I had any impact. And that's the one thing that I gravitated to about real estate is you can, and I know that you can appreciate it because it's in your book and it's in you whenever you talk. You can impact somebody's life. And when I first got into real estate, I was embarrassed. Like, oh, I'm a real estate agent, because I feel like people are, oh God, I don't want to meet another one because I already know 20, and you're probably going to try to have me buy a home that I don't want to buy yet. So it took a while for me to get comfortable that that's not who I was and that's not what I do. And at the same time, one of the most important things to me, I don't know where it came from, but a pledge that I made to myself was that there was never going to be a transaction. I was never going to put my interest first. And it's probably trite to say, for something caused me to say that, and I knew I had to have more walkaway power than my clients.
Yeah.
So that way I would never, ever, ever try to get them to do something that they didn't want to do.
And where do you think that comes from?
And like nothing stands out that somebody taught me.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if it's from an ethics standpoint. I don't want to say I was like enlightened at whatever age that was, because I was probably in my 20s, and I don't know how enlightened an individual I was at that time. But something made me think that and just make that pledge to myself, and it's been very clear.
Very cool. So the thing that I'm really finding interesting is that the patience and your desire to serve your clients with their interest first really puts you on a path towards being present with your clients. It puts you on a path towards really wanting to understand them before you're understood. I mean, you really want to find out what's happening with them and in their lives. So you actually take a little bit deeper dive into what's really important to them, because you have to do that in order to put together a relationship and maintain that. So that's very interesting. Okay, so tell me a little bit about, well, I think I've understood a lot what makes you different as a real estate professional. There's no question about that. What are some other things that make you different? What do you think are some of the things that set you apart and the thing that I really like about what you're talking about is that as a real estate agent and as a professional, you're really serious about your business, right? I mean, it's a real career.
It's a business.
Yeah, it's something that you're doing, right? It's not like 1 foot out and 1 foot in. I mean, you are in it 100%. So tell me some of the things, share with me some of the things that make you a little bit different, that cause you to stand out.
In some aspects of my life, I've done coaching. I've coached youth hockey at a couple different levels. Between my dad,
ice hockey, right?
Actually, ice and roller hockey.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I did that with kids for about 5 or 6 years and just really loved it. When I was a day trader between my dabbling in real estate in the early 90s and going full time in 2002, in the middle, I had about 6 years of day trading, and I was coaching day traders, and I really like the coaching aspect and teaching people and helping. And so with my clients, it's not necessarily coaching, because that they may not appreciate that kind of thought, but it's sharing that information with them, giving them my experience of what they need to be thinking about, not telling them what to think, but again, giving them a lay of the landscape, giving them options, giving them the consequences of those choices and those options, and then letting them choose. So,
and how do you find that that's been successful? How do people relate to you when you do that?
Part of this comes back to our training as a group in emotional intelligence. So to take a step back from that question, and then I will get to that answer. What we're taught when studying emotional intelligence, we study it every day on our calls. I need to take myself, but I need to take myself out of the equation when it comes to a client. There's nothing that the client's doing has anything to do with me. Mm-hmm. So what I think, what I want, gone. It has to be gone. That can't be any part of what I'm doing. So then, stepping forward, then that allows me to focus on them, like you said, being present. And I really appreciate that thought. And there was a part of my life when I wasn't. So that's a change that I'm grateful that I made. And being present for the client and listening to them and what their goals are, and not leading them in a certain way, just listening. Then it allows me to think about different options for them, and then just laying that out as, and one of the things that we've learned is that people will die for their autonomy. So if I tried to make a decision for a client, they wouldn't like the fact that I tried to do that. And then if it didn't work out, I'm the one to blame, because I'm the one that moved them there. Uh-huh. But if I give them, to the best that I can, the lay of the market, the lay of the different options they have and the consequences of those options, and then they go, I want this one. Great. Now, if they're going to walk off a cliff, I'm going to let them know. And if not, I'm going to do my best to make that happen.
So going back to, you made a comment, what made you change to want to be present? What was the cause of that?
One of the things is...
Because you had to recognize it, right? You had to recognize I was not being present.
I went to therapy.
Ah, okay.
I was in therapy for about 1.5 years, which was very helpful and very, very life-changing.
Wow. Tell me about that a little bit, if you're open to that.
Sure. One of the this gets into family stuff, and I think you and I spoke about it, like one of our first breakfast or lunches with Donna.
Yeah.
We spoke about our parents.
Yeah, that's right.
And I had a very dominating father, a very narcissistic and mentally bullying father. And I'm sure that I took some of those traits. As much as I didn't like it in him, I became a narcissist too, in a way. And that led me to, not be the greatest husband because I was thinking about what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that ended up, leading me to therapy and over time working on it and speaking a lot about Dad.
That is amazing.
That helped me realize those things in me that needed changing and that I didn't like and that my wife had been saying. And just, I didn't listen to it because it wasn't, that wasn't fulfilling my narcissistic goals at the time.
Right.
And so.
Wow, that is incredible. That is really something because it shows in my opinion, it shows an extremely wonderful depth of character of saying, man, I got to get my act together, and actually following through and doing something with it. That is just amazing. And it just shows that because I have also been training and coaching and I find that it has been life transforming. And so you were able to actually do something, you were actually able to break the family line of things that were not good, right? I mean, because there's so often we just continue on with whatever our parents, whatever our families, but you actually broke that. Yeah. That is really.
I'm smiling because I had that conversation with my sister. My wife got pregnant. I'm trying to think of when my dad. I'm trying to think of when my dad passed. My dad passed 2 months after my daughter was born.
Oh, wow.
So while he was dying, Sandra was pregnant, and that gave me a lot of, I didn't really think about him dying as much as we're bringing a life into this world, and I'm going to be a dad after 49 years of not being a dad.
Wow.
Wow, exactly.
Yeah.
And thinking about what kind of dad that I wanted to be. And I was out for a walk with my sister the week that my dad had passed, and I said, I've been thinking about being a dad, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do A, B, C, and D. She's like, how would you ever do that? I said, sis, I'm kidding. That's what Dad did to us. I'm not going to do that to my daughter. So I had that thought that when, as a parent, you either think about, well, I had this happen to me, and I'm going to do it to my kid, and I'm going to continue that, or I want to build a better life for my child. And it to me, it didn't mean doing the exact opposite. But I just meant being present,
right,
and putting her best interest first, and that's how I approach being a dad. Like you just said, it wasn't about continuing the pattern. It was about, that was a pattern. I could either hold on to it and be angry, or I could let it go, and that was a process. It took me years and years after therapy to really let that go, and not be hurt and angered by it. And that letting that go allowed me to be more present and to act in somebody else's best interest.
Right, because your cup is full, and you're able to. The cool thing about that situation in your life right now is you're at a point where you can really serve other people without a second agenda. And that's really what that does. I mean, that is incredible when you can actually be in a state of mind, which you were talking about, where you're actually clear about what you're doing. Your mind is clear. You don't have any emotional baggage, or not as much as you had in the past, and you're able to bring fresh perspectives to your clients and to your life and to your wife and your child. That is really amazing. I mean, that just makes you a better individual for serving your clients, I think.
And I think having that, along that line, having that long-term perspective, that Like I just had an escrow close for a seller that they were thinking about selling at the end of 2020. It's three years, almost three years later, and I didn't call her every week to say, "Are you ready to sell? Are you ready to sell?" I call people every 3 months if I haven't heard from them.
Yeah.
Just to touch base. I never once said, "Is the house coming on the market?" When we just keeping in touch, and then when the time was right, they were comfortable calling me. So it's, rarely does somebody call and say, "I'm ready to put the house on the market tomorrow. What do we need to do?" So just knowing that I'm going to be in business in 10 years, and that whatever somebody else's needs are has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with a vacation that I want to go on, and I hope that I can make some money. I'm going to be here. I'm helping people, and having the confidence, knowing that if I do the right thing, that's what I need to do to be running.
Right. That's what makes the difference.
And a successful business. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the way that you're able to take properties that are. I understand you take properties that are needing repairs, and tell me a little bit about how that works, because I think that's really fascinating that you'd be able to build that niche.
You'd be opposed if I took 30 seconds and explained how I even got there?
Sure.
So a couple times knocking on doors. One time I met this guy, Fred, who lived in Simi Valley. 2-story home. It was in disrepair from what I could tell just by when he opened the door. He mentioned he had a son that lived in Idaho and his wife had dementia. He was like, "But I can't sell the home because it needs too much work and I don't want to leave all that money on the table." And I said, "Oh, wow, that must be a tough spot to be in." And 3-4 years later, Fred died and didn't get to move to Idaho and spend his last years with his son. And it kind of stood out with me, like what could I have done to help him? And I met somebody else knocking on doors, and she didn't have the same story, but it was, "Yeah, we would love to move, but we have to do all this work to the house and we don't have any money." And then I got introduced probably about 4 years ago to a way that I could help people that are in that spot where not only is it providing the money to do the work up front, but providing the design element where money is best spent. You just don't spend money to spend money. You spend money where it's strategic, where somebody can benefit from.
Right.
So I could help them do the work. They don't have to hire contractors. I could put the money in up front, and then they could have that improved property. So a person like Fred or this other woman that I met, that they could move on to the next stage of their life and not leave any money on the table. So once I got introduced to that, I knew that a quick step back is, I've heard you should really have a niche, especially in a business like mine, like ours, where there could be so many people doing, "Oh, I do everything." And I was scared to have a niche. And then when I realized that this niche could be, I have that expertise to help people with that. So not only am I serving more people and helping somebody that may not be helped if they meet the wrong real estate agent, but this also allows me to be proactive and help people that inherit property. So I've been working with trustees that inherit property, whether they're local or not. So one of the things that niche did is it allowed me to be proactive and to find people that actually really need that service, one of which are people that inherit properties, whether they inherit it through probate or as a trustee. And I dove into that space to find out, what does a trustee go through? And even if somebody has a trust, which hopefully everybody listening to this either has one or will be motivated to get one, it could still take 9 months to a year to wind down a trust. And if they have real estate in that trust, it's not, "Oh, I'll just go hire an agent and sell it." A lot of times when somebody's passed away, they weren't spending the last years of their life putting money into their house and keeping it fixed up.
Right.
And the trustee has an obligation to the trust to maximize the assets for that trust.
Right.
So I can be proactive, letting trustees know that I can help them figure out whether they should sell as is, because that could make most sense for them, because there's also a risk element when somebody puts money into that.
Yeah.
So I can help them figure out, should they sell it as is? Should they fix it up? If they fix it up, they don't even have to be involved if they don't want. They can be out of state, they can be local, and just give me the key, and I just keep them updated. So I have the ability to figure out where's money best spent, not overspending, spending the money strategically, getting the house fixed up, and finding a great buyer for them, and then helping them maximize those proceeds.
That is very cool. So do they have to put the money up?
They don't. I can put the money up, and then we get paid when escrow closes.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's great. That's a great service because it's turnkey, right?
It is.
In other words,
It
you just hand the deal to Jeff, and he takes care of it. He's got
literally,
the team.
That's what literally they can hand me the key, and then be as involved or as little involved as they would like.
Well, Jeff, it has been a pleasure. I am so grateful that you would take the time to come visit us here at Main Street and really get this idea. I think that your comments are so relatable to other people because we're all having issues. We're all having things that we need to work on, and we're all having successes. And, and we want ideas from other people. And I think that you've been able to encapsulate some really outstanding comments today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And is there anything else that you would want us to know before we conclude?
I would speak about my experience with you at the other end, helping my buyers. Is that okay if I do that?
Yeah, that'd be all right.
There's a lot of things that are different about you. And, one is you have your book. I see that when I refer clients to you. It's not, let me get you into a loan so I can calculate how much money that I'll make when escrow closes. Because if I didn't mention it, I was a mortgage broker for 1 year, and I saw people doing that. I saw the people that were motivated by money just to get a deal closed. And, I knew from when I met you, and then it gets reinforced every time that we work with each other, then you're not like that.
Thank you.
You bring a level of education about everything that somebody should be keeping in mind. So it's finding the right loan for them and helping them understand what's happening on as much as somebody needs to on a macro level, but bringing it down so somebody can understand. And I've never had a lender or lending team communicate more than you. I've never had that happen, and I've been in business over 20 years.
Wow.
And a lot of the times I'm left guessing where we are in the process, and then I have to call, and I have to wait back for a call, and the call may happen or may not. And I know that I'm going to get a call from you or somebody on your team every Monday with an update, if not more, during the week. And that's such a pleasure. And there's a lot of uncertainty for our clients. Somebody buying or selling a home, what's going to happen? When's it going to happen next?
Right.
What's it going to look like? When's it going to end?
Yeah.
And for the loan, so what's next? With the appraisal, well, what's an appraisal like? What's going to happen in underwriting? Why do you need that extra pay stub and blah, blah, blah? Like all these things that there's so much uncertainty for our clients. And one of the ways to minimize that is by communication.
Yeah.
And you've nailed it.
Well, thank you. That's wonderful. And
thank you.
It's interesting. I actually changed my title to America's Homeownership Coach because I wanted to encapsulate, I wanted to include not just the loan process, but the relationship process, the process of actually connecting and being something at a deeper level that people can relate to and live throughout their lives in their new home.
And that's you being true to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a sales thing.
Yeah.
That's you figuring out how you can be of more value to your clients.
Yeah. Very cool.
Thank you.